In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about quartiles and percentiles. And quartiles and percentiles help us talk about the shape or spread of our data. So in this top picture, I have taken from your textbook a picture of 3 different data sets. So here is data set 1 in the green, 2 in the orange, I guess that is, and 3 in the purple. And these are dot plots, and you can tell a lot from dot plots, right? We can tell that number 1 has kind of a symmetrical shape. Number 2 is kind of a little bit left skewed. And then number 3, we might call that bimodal just because it has that dip in there. It's not quite bimodal, but it's a little bit. So there is a different shape to each of these dot plots. And that's basically what we want to look at. What can we tell about these dot plots or these groups of data? And one way to look at them is by looking at their quartiles. Now, quartile starts with a prefix that looks a lot like quarter. And that's because it has to do with breaking. We're going to break the data into 4 pieces. Okay, and they're called quartiles. And the way we're going to do this is by ordering them just like we did when we found the median. And by the way, the median, notice, is going to be one of our quartiles. It's the 50th percentile is the median. And then we're going to have 2 other quartiles, one that represents the 25th percentile and one that represents the 75th percentile. Now, how do we do that? Well, again, what I said is we're going to order all of our data. So let's take a look at the first data set, and we start with the number 4. And we go up to the number 10, and we're ordering them in order numerically from least to greatest, just like we did when we found the median. The median, remember, is the middle number. So in this set of data, we have, looks like 24 data points. So we're going to divide them in half first. And then we're going to divide each of the halves in half. So here is our half marker at the 50th percentile. And then we're going to take those data points and divide them in half. And that will be the 25th percentile. And then we're going to divide the top part, the top 50% of our data in half. And that'll be our 75th percentile. So our percentile is, there's really no calculations involved unless you have an even number of data. And for example, here, we're dividing between the 5 and the 6. Just like when we calculated median, we would average those 2 numbers to find the boundary of that quartile, of that first quartile. But we're ordering the numbers, and then we're just splitting them into 4 equal pieces. That's all we're doing to find our quartiles. Now, we can also visualize quartiles. So we have the same data points down here. This same display showing the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles, or the first quartile, the median, and the third quartile. So we can draw them as a box plot. And to draw a box plot, we're going to make a box. The starting point of the box is at the number represented by the 25th percentile. The back part of the box is at the 75th percentile. And then the middle of the box is at the 50th percentile. And then we just connect them to make them into a box. Now, some people call these box and whisker plots. And the reason that they're called box and whisker plots is because we also can add a little line here starting at the lowest data value. In the case of the first data set, it's at 4. So we kind of put a point there, and then we connect that with a little whisker to the box. And then the same thing with the highest data value. We put a little point there and we connect it with a little whisker to the box. So the box tells you the percentile values, and the whiskers tell you the lowest data value and the highest data value. So you can see from our box and whisker plots, they make a nice visual of the differences in our data sets, right? So we can see that, for example, all of them have the same median. Interesting that they all have the same median number, but they have a very different 25th and 75th percentiles. They have very different first quartile and third quartile numbers. And in fact, if we look at this third data set, there's no whisker. So the third quartile does represent the highest value as well. So yeah, just some interesting observations from our box plot. One last thing I want to talk about is calculating the range and the interquartile range. We sometimes call that the IQR, interquartile range. So what is the range for each data set? All we do is take the highest value and subtract the lowest. And that will give us our range. So for the first data set, our highest value is 10. And our lowest value is 4. So our range is 6. And our range is always going to be a positive number. So if you forget and flip them and get a negative number, just take the absolute value of it and make it a positive number. All right. So then what is the IQR? Well, again, it's a range, but it's the interquartile range. So what we're going to do is take the value for the 75th percentile and subtract the value for the 25th percentile. So again, for our first data set, our 75th percentile is at 8, and our 25th percentile is at 6. So our interquartile range is 2. So just know how to calculate these things and know how to find the different quartiles, percentiles, and then use them to draw a box plot.